author of Creating a Bad Guy Free Zone and Creating a Bad Guy Free Zone While Traveling. In this video, I just want to offer some projections for 2018, and unfortunately, I don't think they're going to be good. I'm going to give you some charts to look at to give you some examples of why I'm predicting an unsafe and more violent 2018, and then some basic opinions of my own about what might be driving more violence in 2018. So let's get down to it right off the bat. Let's just start with the first chart. The first chart, as you can see here, is coming from the U.S. Extreme Crime Database. These are PolitiFact polls, or not polls, but graphs indicating information about what's happened between September 2001 and December 31st, 2016. These are normally taken from FBI reports and other various reports. We can see here that 47% of the deaths resulted from far-right extremists. The other 53% resulted from attacks by radical Islamic extremists. And what you need to understand about the radical Islamic extremists is a large number of those attacks happened, or deaths happened in one attack, and that was the Orlando attack in the Pulse nightclub that killed over 49 people down there. Now, this number is going to change in 2017 because you had over 50 people killed in the attack in Las Vegas by one lone shooter gunman that was not an Islamic extremist. So these numbers are going to change considerably, tilting the average more towards the radical far right person, or person who's a lone shooter who happens to be some sort of extremist. So this is one thing we can see here, that we have as many Americans out there right now with far-right views killing people than we do Islamic terrorists. I mean, it's on the same level, so that should be alarming to a lot of people right there. Another graph that I want you to take a look at is one that shows from the same database, but the number of attacks, or 85 attacks by violent extremists in the U.S., resulting in 255 deaths. I think what this is showing here is the amount of deaths attributed, or the amount of attacks that were attributed to those 85 attacks were coming from the far-right violent extremists more than the radical Islamic terrorists. And like I said, that's going to actually increase in terms of the number of attacks, because we've had some attacks recently that will show an increase in those in 2017 that were U.S. attacks. So the numbers in terms of the far-right violent extremists are going to go up even more, and the number of deaths attributed to them are going to go up even more. And now in 2017, so our prediction is not looking real good. I mean, you can just look at the dates relative to that, and frankly, I have another graph to show you real quickly here, and that is the mass shooting deaths by year in the U.S. And we can see from when you start back in 1995, when basically this was showing when the gun ban was in place for the AR-15 versus when it was not. You can see the total number of deaths began increasing after that ban was lifted, and just kept on increasing. There are some peaks and valleys to it. I think what is unique in this is the tremendous spike since 2014. You look at 2014, and all of a sudden the 2014, 2015, and then 2016 and 2017 really took some large spikes relative to potential deaths. So when you follow this trend, if you do trend data, all these trends tend to indicate a significant increase and a rise in mass shootings and deaths associated with mass shootings, whether they're from extremist or what we could say would be a combination of extremist and right-wing terrorist, about equal or probably a little more since 2017 on the far right U.S. citizen-based attacks. We're beginning to see quickly, it doesn't look good for 2018. So my projection is that you're going to have an increase in violent crimes in 2018. And unfortunately, there is so much hatred and so much resentment going on now. We are a highly divided country internally, and it's not getting any better. We've just seen that from a really massive debate and closing down the government, and the hatred that was espoused on social media on both sides of that argument. And a president is tweeting some fairly ridiculous things like complicity of senators if immigrants come into the country and kill somebody. It's not looking like that is the scenario that's the primary factor. However, rhetoric like that doesn't unify, doesn't calm things down. It excites people, and it gives people a cause or a reason. And we've seen this where the far right, whether it's intended or not, I don't know, but the far right has attached itself to Donald Trump and what he says as a justification and methodology for continuing potential violent attacks. And so I would just say I am predicting a worse year in 2018, continuing of that graph. If it does reduce, I don't think it'll reduce that much, and depending on how DACA and other kinds of programs that are associated with immigration go, who knows what that might excite or get started. So I would say to you this, on my website, www.reducethreats.com, there is my book, Creating a Bad Guy Free Zone, which I converted to an audiobook, and you can listen to that audiobook for free. And I think it's time now people get more serious about learning what to do to protect yourself and to help you understand when we say something like, if you see something, say something, that that something is that you're trying to look for, to kind of predict a threat or a particular suspicious incident and whether that could be a threat or not. So this is important stuff for you to grasp and get a hold of, because frankly there are not a lot of law enforcement officers out there. They do great jobs when they're there, but They stopped some things, and we're reading more and more about things being stopped, but we're also reading the reason those things are being stopped is they're being reported by the public. So that's the role you can play. You can become the eyes and ears. We can have millions of people becoming the eyes and ears to help our law enforcement, but you have to know what it is that you're looking for. You have to know about criminal activity. You have to know their criminal method of operation or terrorist method of operation. That's stuff that I cover in this book, Creating a Bad Guy Free Zone. And the other book, Creating a Bad Guy Free Zone While You Travel, is the other book I have, and it is focused on helping you to run down a checklist to ensure you're more safe and secure while you're traveling. That's just not only terrorist, but it's also helping you understand the documentation you need to have in case you have it stolen or you lose it. It gets you mentally prepared for dealing with things outside of terrorism, like earthquakes or fires or other disaster scenarios that might come about, and or if you happen to get into an area that's disease-ridden and you happen to get sick, and what's covered, what's not covered. So Creating a Bad Guy Free Zone While You Travel is really a good book for a check-off if you're going on a trip, and particularly internationally. In my YouTube channel, Reduce Threats on YouTube, and I'll put these links in the description of this video. In there is a whole series on this book that I did, where I went down through the book in video format, point by point or chapter by chapter, and then I did a pretty significant in-depth chapter on kidnapping that's part of the book. The book didn't go as much into depth, so the videos do, though. They provide you a lot of information about kidnapping and how you need to be thinking about that, and that's becoming more and more prevalent in countries that don't have control of their territories, like the Mideast, Venezuela, Central America, Mexico, those areas. So anyway, I just would encourage you to begin to think about your safety and security more in 2018. And this is Victor Vogel, and know everywhere I go, I create bad guy free zones. Have a great day.